Hey everyone, it's Jaeyoung, and as most of you might know, yesterday Ashe made her way to the live servers of Overwatch. She'll be locked out of competitive play for now, and it'll be a while before we see how she fits into this current meta. So instead of some concrete speculation on the metagame, I'd like to dedicate this video overview to taking a look at her hero kit. This will mainly be about the raw numbers of her abilities, and perhaps how she compares to other heroes individually. So, let's get started. Ashe's main weapon is her cool lever action rifle called the Viper. The Viper is a hit-scan weapon with two firing modes, an unscoped hipfire mode as well as a scoped fire mode, similar to Ana's biotic rifle. It houses a max of 12 ammo at once, and instead of reloading all at once, Ashe has to load up each bullet individually. The first bullet to be reloaded into the rifle takes slightly longer than the rest, at about 0.6 seconds due to the hand animation. However, the following bullets after the initial animation take about 0.3 seconds each to reload. So it takes about 4 seconds to reload an entire empty rifle. The reload process can be stopped by shooting or scoping in, but it can only happen once the reload for a bullet is finished. So there's always going to be a slight delay before being able to shoot if you're in the middle of the animation. A melee attack, however, can be done at any time during the reload process without having to wait. And unlike most of the weapons in Overwatch, you can't hold down fire to empty out the rifle automatically. You have to tap it repeatedly instead. Anyway, let's go over the hipfire mode first. Firing the Viper from the hip does 40 damage a shot and has a fall-off range that starts at about 20 meters and maxes out at about 40 meters. The rifle can fire 4 bullets in about a second in this mode and reaches its maximum spread on the 5th shot and beyond. In this mode, she can kinda be compared to how McCree is like, though with much less raw damage. Her scoped rifle mode, or whatever you want to call it, is far more interesting, so let's go over that now. Each scope shot does 85 damage, and unlike Widowmaker, it does indeed have a fall-off range that starts at about 30 meters instead, and maxes out at 40 meters as well. In this mode, Ashe can fire about 1.5 shots a second and doesn't have any spread. And just like Widowmaker and Ana, scoping in reduces Ashe's movement speed as well, but only by about a quarter. However, unlike Widowmaker and Ana, Ashe can still jump while scoped in without the jump cancelling the scope. So, without taking into account fall-off damage, Ashe can deal a solid 200 damage with a scoped headshot plus melee attack. Assuming you hit your shots, of course. And with the help of the Mercy damage boost of Zenyatta Discord Orb on the right target, she can deal about 221 damage a headshot. In this mode, she can kinda be considered a Widowmaker-light sort of damage dealer that sits at mid-range instead of all the way in the back. Being experienced in quick scoping with her is definitely going to be a skill anyone interested in getting good at Ashe has to have. There is minimal delay when switching from hipfire to scoped as opposed to switching from scoped to hipfire. So, if you find yourself in a situation that calls for it, firing off a hipfire shot and a scoped one after would be much quicker than doing it the other way around. The way her rifle works would definitely put her in a position quite similar to McCree or Soldier 76, playing at mid-range, although I can see her occasionally playing a bit further back sometimes to take advantage of her scope shots. Additionally, she has a certain degree of self-sufficiency that allows her to play a little further back and away from her team in the form of her coach gun. Her coach gun is pretty interesting in that it is a mobility, peel, as well as a finisher ability all in one push of a button, depending on how cleverly you use it. At point blank, it does 90 damage with a spread very much comparable to a shotgun. You cannot headshot with the coach gun, and its damage falloff is quite severe at max range, so unless you're finishing someone off running away with like 10 health, best keep it for when you really need it. And with a 10-second cooldown, you really don't want to be without it in the heat of the battle. So 90 health is the damage portion of this gun, but of course it also has the ability to knock enemy targets in your field of view back by about 9 meters. This is quite comparable to Lucio's Soundwave Boop knockback. And at the same time, firing the coach gun also knocks Ashe back and away by about 9 meters as well, potentially allowing you to put some considerable distance between you and some pesky flankers. So since the self-knockback on the gun can propel Ashe in the opposite direction she fires, it can be used as a mobility ability as well. It can even be used mid-air without hitting any targets or surfaces. The self-knockback will still happen even if the gun's pellets are eaten up by an enemy diva. And interestingly, shooting into an enemy Genji's deflect propels you twice as far due to the self-knockback and the enemy knockback being deflected back towards you. So, as said before, the coach gun has mobility, peel, as well as finishing power, which is pretty damn useful. But a 10-second cooldown is quite punishing, so unlike say Lucio's Boop, which has a 4-second cooldown, you have to be smart on when you use it. Her next ability is Dynamite, and I think you can guess what Dynamite does when used. Dynamite allows her to throw a bundle of, you guessed it, dynamite out that does up to 175 damage after it explodes. The way the damage is distributed is that it does 75 damage at the center of the explosion, followed up by 100 damage burn over 5 seconds to targets that catch fire. The explosive AoE of Dynamite is about 5 meters, which is just a bit bigger than Ana's Biotic Grenade's AoE of 4 meters. Despite igniting targets similar to Torbjorn's Molten Core, the burning effect does not actually do extra damage to armored targets. Its damage is reduced like any other damage source against armor. And somewhat fittingly, the burning effect can be put out by grabbing a health pack. Dynamite has a cooldown of 10 seconds which starts the moment it is thrown out, meaning players can preemptively use the ability before a fight begins like they would an offensive biotic grenade and have it usable against once the fight starts. It can be detonated by shooting it with either of her guns or letting it self-detonate after 2 seconds of landing on the ground. It has a seemingly lighter weight than a biotic grenade, which I think is to make it easier to shoot midair. It's also designed so that it will kind of automatically fall into the player's crosshair the moment it is thrown out. In fact, if you keep your crosshair still, shooting as soon as you can after throwing out is pretty much guaranteed to hit it. It can also be eaten by D.Va's defense matrix, deflected by Genji, and will not go through barriers. Additionally, Dynamite also does precisely half damage to Ashe. With the hefty amount of healing available in this meta, particularly AoE healing from Lucio and Brigitte, the burning from Dynamite isn't something you want to bank on straight up getting you kills. But it can be really effective at weakening deathball compositions due to their clumped up nature. It's also going to be very effective for cleaning up fights or pressuring for more advantage after the enemy team loses a player, particularly one of their healers. It's an ability that has a simple concept but can be used very cleverly. And finally, let's talk about her ultimate, the big boy Bob himself. Other than being the sexiest mechanical beast alive, Bob is the very first AI ultimate ability in the game. This guy can be nano boosted, he can be stunned, he can be hacked, he can be slept, headshot, and even contest point. Basically, any of the things an actual player-controlled hero can do, Bob can do too. So, how he works is that once Ashe activates her ultimate, she summons Bob to come charging forward in the direction of her crosshair. His initial charge is quite far, up to 60 meters or so, and it is stopped by terrain, walls, or bumping into enemies. This charge can be interrupted by a variety of other abilities like Reinhardt's Charge, Doomfist's Rocket Punch, Brigitte's Shield Bash, McCree's Flashbang, and a Sleep Dart, or even another Bob. Anyway, bumping into enemies causes Bob to deal 120 damage to them before flinging them up into the air. Enemies with 200 HP or less can be kill comboed by this with the initial 120 damage, ideally being followed up with an 85 damage body shot from Ashe. But whether Bob collides with enemies or is stopped by a wall, after stopping he begins the secondary part of the ultimate, where he stands still and pretty much acts as a turret with 1200 HP. This phase lasts about 10 seconds or until Bob dies. So, he starts by shooting at enemies in the vicinity, dealing about 110 damage a second with his gun in a radius of about 40 meters with fall-off damage. Bob has pretty decent aim during this phase, so don't bother trying to crouch spam his shots. It's worth noting that while Bob is deployed, Ashe can already start gaining ultimate charge towards the next time she summons Bob. However, damage Bob does not contribute any charge to this. All in all, Ashe is looking like a very interesting and mechanically rewarding hero to play. Other than purely mechanical moments of shooting the heads off others, there's a lot of game sense and creativity to be found when using her abilities. It's going to be interesting to see how she settles in this meta once unlocked in competitive play. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, have fun playing Overwatch, take care, and don't forget to thank your Bobs. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, share, whatever. Take care everyone.